He thought humiliating an 11-year-old girl would protect his empire. With millions watching, a famous singer dragged a shy black girl onto the stage, expecting her to fail. But what she did next didn't just shock the audience. It exposed a lie that had lasted 15 years and ended a career built on deception. Stay till the end, because this child didn't just sing a note he couldn't hit. She changed the entire music industry. Zara Williams was just 11 years old when the world first tried to tell her she didn't matter. She stood backstage at a glittering charity gala, her shoes slightly too big, her dress borrowed from the church closet. The chandeliers above sparkled like another universe, one she had never been invited into. Zara came from a small apartment in Compton, where the walls were thin and the nights were loud, but Sunday mornings were sacred. That was where her voice lived, in a worn wooden pew, in a gospel choir, in songs sung with eyes closed and hands lifted. Tonight, though, she wasn't meant to be heard. She was part of the background, one of several kids chosen to stand and smile while the real star performed. And what a star he was. Chase Hendricks, for platinum albums, 2 Grammys, magazine covers that called him the voice of a generation. When Chase walked into the room, conversations stopped. Phones rose. Even the air seemed to wait for him. During sound check, Zara stood near the speakers, listening, not with awe but with instinct. She had perfect pitch, though no one had ever given it a name. To her, notes weren't sounds. They were truths. And then she heard it. The note. The one Chase was famous for. The soaring high note that made stadiums scream and critics cry. He missed it. Not slightly. Completely. He adjusted. Tried again. His jaw tightened. The pianist glanced away. A technician pretended not to notice. But Zara noticed. Her heart began to pound. Not with excitement, but confusion. She knew that note. She had sung it in church without effort, without applause, without even knowing it was special. She looked around, wondering if anyone else had heard what she heard. No one spoke, so neither did she, because who would believe a poor black girl from the choir over a global superstar the world had already decided to worship? Zara lowered her eyes and stepped back into the shadows. For now, the lights came up like a verdict. 500 guests sat frozen at round tables draped in white linen, their champagne glasses catching the glow of cameras and crystal chandeliers. Beyond the walls of the ballroom, 2 million people watched the live stream from their phones, their couches, their beds, unaware they were about to witness something that had nothing to do with charity and everything to do with power. Chase Hendricks smiled into the microphone. It was the smile fans loved. The one that sold albums and softened scandals. The one that said, "Trust me." Zara stood with the other kids near the back of the stage, hands folded, eyes down, doing exactly what she had been told to do. Don't move. Don't speak. Don't be noticed. Chase's voice echoed through the hall. Before we go any further, he said casually, I want to do something special tonight. The audience leaned in. He turned, and his eyes locked on Zara. There, he said, pointing. You, come here. A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd, light and harmless, like they thought this was part of the show. Zara didn't move. For a second, the room held its breath. Chase walked toward her. Up close, he smelled expensive, cologne and confidence. His smile never left his face, but his eyes were sharp, searching her for fear. When he reached her, he placed a hand on her shoulder. Not gentle, not kind, possessive. Don't be shy, he said into the mic, his voice warm, friendly. This young lady was standing back here during sound check. Very serious, very quiet. The audience chuckled. Chase leaned down slightly, his mouth close to her ear. You heard it, he whispered. Didn't you? Zara's chest tightened. Before she could answer, he turned her toward the spotlight and gently, but firmly, guided her forward. Cameras zoomed in. The screen behind them exploded with her face, wide eyes, dark skin glowing under lights never meant for her. Let's see if you can actually sing, Chase said, smiling wider. Or if you're just taking up space. The room went silent. Some people laughed, unsure. Others shifted in their seats. A few frowned, but no one stood up. Zara felt the heat of a million eyes. Her legs trembled. Her throat closed. She wasn't prepared. She hadn't warmed up, She hadn't even been told she might sing. This wasn't an invitation. This was a challenge. No worse. It was a warning. Chase stepped back, crossing his arms, the picture of relaxed confidence. To the audience, it looked playful. To Zara, it felt like being pushed to the edge of a cliff. She understood then. This wasn't kindness. This wasn't encouragement. This was control. Chase knew she had heard the truth during soundcheck. He had seen it in her eyes, the flicker of recognition, the unspoken knowledge. And powerful men hated nothing more than being seen clearly by someone they believed was invisible. If she failed here, in front of the world, she would be dismissed forever. Just another kid who got nervous. Another nobody who reached too high. And if she succeeded, Zara swallowed hard. Chase raised his eyebrows at her, amused. Well, he said, we're waiting. Somewhere deep inside her, beneath the fear, beneath the shame, something steady began to rise. A memory of church mornings, of voices lifting together, of a choir director once telling her, "Baby, God didn't give you that voice for you to hide it." Her hand stopped shaking, because if this moment was meant to silence her forever, then Chase Hendricks had made one fatal mistake. He had given her the microphone. Zara didn't rush. That alone confused everyone. An 11-year-old girl, standing under lights bright enough to blind grown men, didn't cry, didn't shake, didn't beg to be excused. She simply lifted the microphone with both hands and looked, not at the crowd, but at Chase Hendricks. Her voice came out soft, steady. "Can you turn off the backing track?" A murmur rippled through the room. The pianist froze. The sound technician hesitated, glancing at Chase. This wasn't in the plan. The backing track was insurance. A safety net. A layer of sound meant to hide small cracks. Chase laughed lightly. "Oh, we want it raw now," he said. Brave choice. But something in Zara's eyes made him pause. "I sing in church," she added quietly. "We don't use tracks." The room fell still. Chase waved a hand. "Fine," he said. "Turn it off." The music cut. Silence rushed in, thick, uncomfortable, honest. Zara took a breath. Then, instead of singing, she asked a question. "Can you sing first?" A few people laughed, thinking it was cute. A child's nerves. A delay tactic. Chase's smile tightened. "What?" "The note," Zara said. "Calm. Clear. The one everyone loves." A hush swept across the audience. This wasn't part of the script. Chase chuckled again, louder this time. "You want me to audition?" He glanced around. "All right. Why not?" The crowd clapped, relieved. The power balance, they assumed, had returned to normal. Chase stepped forward. He adjusted the microphone, rolled his shoulders. He had done this thousands of times, on stages 10 times bigger than this. But never like this. No track, no echo, no studio magic. Just him. He closed his eyes and began. The opening lines were fine. Strong, even. Familiar. The audience relaxed. Then the moment came. The note. The one that defined his career. Chase inhaled and pushed. His voice climbed, then wavered. A crack cut through the room like glass breaking. He tried to force it higher. The sound thinned, collapsed, fell flat. A sharp, unmistakable miss. Gasps rippled through the hall. Chase stopped, laughing awkwardly. "Let's try that again." He did. Worse. His voice strained, desperate now. The confidence drained from his face as reality caught up with him. He stepped back from the mic, breath uneven. The silence afterward was brutal. No applause. No cheers. No excuses. For the first time in 15 years, the illusion had cracked. Live, unfiltered, undeniable. Camera zoomed in. Chase swallowed hard and turned toward Zara, forcing a smile. "All right," he said quickly. "Your turn." Zara nodded. She stepped forward. The microphone looked huge in her hands. The stage felt endless. But she remembered the wooden floors of her church, the way the choirs swayed together, the way voices carried each other when one grew tired. She closed her eyes and sang. The first note was gentle, pure, clear as water. People leaned forward without realizing it. Her voice rose, smooth, effortless, untouched by fear. Then came a note. She didn't hesitate. She didn't push. She floated into it. Higher than Chase had gone. Cleaner than the recordings. Stronger than anyone expected from a child. The sound filled the room, warm, powerful, alive. It didn't echo off the walls. It wrapped around people's chests and squeezed their hearts. Somewhere in the crowd, someone whispered, "Oh my God." Zara held the note. Then she went higher. Gasps turned into cries. Phone shot up. Tears spilled freely. The sound wasn't just impressive. It was truthful. A voice untrained by fame, untouched by ego, singing exactly what it was meant to sing. When she finished, the silence lasted half a second. Then the room exploded. 500 people rose to their feet in one movement. Applause thundered. Cheers roared. Strangers hugged. Some openly wept. Online, the livestream numbers surged. Clips spread instantly. 11-year-old destroys famous singer live. Backing track exposed. Pure talent versus manufactured fame. The internet erupted. Zara opened her eyes. Chase stood frozen beside her. No smile. No applause. Just shock. The world had seen it now. A child had done what no critic, no journalist, no rival ever could. She hadn't attacked him. She hadn't insulted him. She had simply told the truth. With her voice. And in that moment, under the lights, before millions, the balance of power shifted forever. The applause hadn't even faded before the backlash began. By morning, the world had split in two. On one side were millions replaying the clip, slowing it down, analyzing every note, calling it the most honest musical moment in years. On the other side stood something far older and far uglier than fame. Power protecting itself. Zara woke up to her mother, crying quietly in the kitchen. Their small apartment felt smaller than ever. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Emails stacked faster than they could be opened. By noon, a thick envelope arrived, delivered by a man in a suit who didn't smile. Inside were words Zara didn't fully understand yet, but could feel. Cease and desist. Defamation. Intentional harm to reputation. By evening, the number became clear. A $10 million lawsuit. Chase Hendricks' legal team moved like a machine. Fast, precise, merciless. Press statements were released before Zara even finished breakfast. She was coached. It was a setup. The child misunderstood professional sound arrangements. They didn't say her name much. They didn't have to. They let the implication do the damage. Then came the offer. A second envelope. Cleaner. Softer. Almost polite. Inside was a contract and a check. $50,000. More money than Zara's family had ever seen in one place. Enough to fix the leaking ceiling. Enough to move somewhere safer. Enough to breathe. All she had to do was sign one sentence. I exaggerated the events of that night and falsely claimed Chase Hendricks could not sing the note live. In short, call yourself a liar. Zara stared at the paper for a long time. Her mother's hand shook as she held the check. "Baby," she whispered, "this could help us." Zara looked up at her. But it's not true. The pressure didn't stop there. It multiplied. Her school called an emergency meeting. They said the attention was disruptive, that reporters outside the gates were a problem, that other parents were uncomfortable. Suspension was mentioned. Temporary, they said, until things calmed down. Online, the kindness curdled. Comments flooded in by the thousands. She was planted. Her parents used her. Ungrateful little girl. Someone teach this kid her place. People dissected her face, her voice, her childhood. They dug into her family history like it was evidence of a crime. Old photos were taken out of context. Lies were repeated until they sounded like facts. Even church felt different. Whispers followed her down the aisle. Some smiled too hard. Others avoided her eyes. A few told her mother, gently, that maybe it was time to let it go. Chase Hendricks went on tour. On stage, he joked about internet moments and kids wanting attention. Crowds laughed. Industry friends defended him. Executives stayed silent. Because this wasn't just about one singer. It was about a system that had spent decades deciding who gets to be believed and who doesn't. Every part of it was designed to break her. To make her small again. Quiet again. Invisible again. One night, Zara sat on her bed, scrolling through messages until her chest hurt. She finally turned the phone off and stared at the wall. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said softly. Her mother sat beside her. "I know. They want me to say I lied," Zara continued. "But if I say that, Then the truth disappears. Her mother reached for her hand. "They're powerful, baby." Zara nodded. Then she said something no one expected from an 11-year-old who had just been dragged through the world spotlight. "I'm not." The next day, their lawyer called Chase's team back. Zara wouldn't sign. She wouldn't apologize. She wouldn't disappear. When asked why, Zara gave a statement. Short, simple, unpolished. "I didn't lie," she said. "And I won't say I did, just because he's rich." The statement went viral. Not because it was clever, but because it was true. And somewhere, quietly at first, something began to change. People who had stayed silent started speaking up. Vocal coaches, sound engineers, musicians who had toured with Chase years ago. They didn't all say the same thing, but they said enough. Because when power strikes back, it expects fear. What it doesn't know how to handle is a child who refuses to be bought. Something unexpected happened. The truth didn't fade. It multiplied. At first, it was one voice, quiet, shaking, but real. A woman who had never stood on a red carpet. A session singer, the kind whose name never appears on an album cover. She posted a short video from her living room. "I sang that note," she said. "Not Chase." The internet froze. Then another voice joined her. And another. Backup vocalists, touring singers, studio engineers who had spent years adjusting levels and layering tracks until one man sounded untouchable. Producers came forward, some anonymously at first, others willing to risk everything. They all said versions of the same thing. The voice the world loved wasn't always his. Journalists followed the trail. Old recordings resurfaced. Contracts were leaked. Audio files were analyzed frame by frame. What started as a viral moment turned into a legal reckoning. When the case reached court, there was nowhere left to hide. Experts testified. Raw studio takes were played. Emails were read aloud. Emails that proved Chase Hendricks had relied on others to create the sound that made him famous. The illusion collapsed completely. Sponsors walked away within days. Award committees launched reviews. Then announcements came, quiet at first, then loud. Awards revoked. Endorsements canceled. Tours postponed indefinitely. But the fallout didn't stop there. The industry, forced into the light, began to change. New rules were written. Session singers received proper credit. Contracts were rewritten to protect young performers. Schools updated policies to shield students from media exploitation. All because an 11-year-old had refused to lie. Zara watched it unfold from her small living room. Homework spread across the table. She didn't celebrate. She didn't gloat. She went back to choir practice. But something had changed. Kids like her were being heard now. Teachers listened differently. Producers hesitated before cutting corners. Power thought twice before pushing silence onto someone small. Zara hadn't just won a case. She had started a movement, one that reminded the world of something simple and dangerous to those who profit from lies. Money can amplify a voice, but truth only needs one person brave enough to sing it out loud. Zara had never wanted fame. She just refused to lie. A man tried to destroy a child, to protect his legacy. Instead, the child destroyed the lie. Because courage doesn't look like power. It looks like an 11-year-old girl, standing under a spotlight and saying, "No." So here's the question. If you were there, would you have stood up with her? Because sometimes, the smallest voice changes the world the most.